Mental Jen and welcome to another Is It Worth the Grind video. Today we are looking at the Jagdpanzer E-100. I've done this before, but the review is so old that it is quite outdated. The tank hasn't really been changed though. So for me this tank is worth the grind just because of the novelty factor of having a Jagdpanzer in your garage, but for most people that is not enough of a reason to grind a tier 10. So is this thing actually a good tank? Well, let's find out. So, as always, let's start with the grind. So we start at tier 5 with stock 3G. Would be a cool little tank and I would enjoy playing it way more if it didn't have 310 view range, but it does. So it doesn't really fit my playstyle very well. It cannot spot for itself. It's not like a D25 which can literally shit on other tier 6s and 7s. With the view range and the great camo. This thing just doesn't have the view range, so it is hard to play it independently, let's say. After that though, I mean the modules are not really important. You can use the 105 as well if you prefer. It's not that great at tier 5 as it is on the Hetzer, but it's still an option. So tier 6 we get to the Flatpanzer, aka the Jagdpanzer 4. One of the worst tier 6 TDs, I got to say right away. The gun choices are just lackluster. The view range again is shit. The tank is reasonably mobile and turns really well. Again, if you have played any of the other German tanks, these engines are gonna get shared all around. So bad view range plus bad guns, again, not my cup of tea. You have a choice of two guns, the short 88 and the short 7.5. Well, no, this is not the short one. This is the short one. It's a tough choice. I mean, I played it with the 8.8, and if you like to use gold ammo, this is definitely going to be the gun to use. But if not, I mean, this does just the job. It's just that the tank loses all its punch. You can also play it with a derp gun if you feel silly enough, but I wouldn't really recommend that all that much. At tier 7, however, we get to one of the better tier 7 TDs, the Jagdpanzer. I mean, it's kind of weird how this tank is known as one of the better tier 7 TDs. It doesn't really excel in anything. It doesn't have a lot of armor. It's not the fastest one either anymore, and the guns aren't really the greatest either. I mean, if you compare this to the SU-12244, which is a premium, which goes faster, has better armor, and arguably has a way better gun, then you don't really see why this tank is regarded as being pretty good, but it actually is. It has good gun depression. The view range isn't complete, well, no, it is pretty shitty still. 350 meters isn't really something you want to deal with. You have to put binos on this and it's gonna be fine. But it kind of works. It has really good gun depression and the gun is alright. It definitely works, the Jagdpanzer, so one of the better tier 7 TDs, and again, the modules get shared pretty much with any other tier German tank in the game, apart from the guns, of course. Those are only shared between the tank destroyers. And then we get to the Jagdpanzer 2. Also, Jagdpanzer or Ferdinand? Here's your answer. I don't even fucking have the Ferdinand. Fuck the Ferdinand. Ferdinand can burn in hell. Jagdpanzer 2, man. Every time of the day. So Jagdpanzer 2, definitely one of the best tier 8 TDs. Excellent mobility, excellent gun, and the view range got nerfed, so optics is not really something you can use with 360 meter view range, but now with binos it should still do fine. It's unfortunate that they nerfed the ability to play this thing super aggressive, very much like a aggressive light tank with the excellent hull. Well, excellent superstructure, not the hull. But yeah, Jagdpanzer 2 definitely one of the best tier 8 TDs. This is pretty much the gun that the mouse uses, that the E75 uses, so it is definitely a really competitive gun. And the best part about this tank is that it doesn't have unnecessary armor and it's not unnecessary slow for that reason. Next up, the Jagdtiger tier 9. Not my favorite. I know a lot of people like it, but I didn't really enjoy playing this thing. It just felt too slow for my liking. The gun on it is really great, and it would be hilarious if like something like a mouse got this gun. But it's a really great gun. There's no real doubt about it. But just the combination of not so great alpha damage with not so great speed didn't really tick my boxes. But if you prefer playing slower tanks, if you prefer sitting somewhere held down the entire game and waiting for the enemies to go into your gun, then yeah, sure. This tank excels at range, it excels at sitting held down. It is prone of flanking, it is prone of not being able to finish its enemies in one shot, which you cannot say about the Jagdpanzer, and that is why Jagdpanzer is still in my garage and I enjoy playing it every once in a while the Jagdtiger is not. That being said, the engines again get shared by pretty much anything. You should definitely get these. The Yak with the stock engine isn't something you really want to play, and the gun, obviously you have to get it and you want to get it. The increase in penetration plus the increase in alpha damage and the DPM and everything else is definitely worth it. And yeah, that's pretty much everything there is to say about the grind. Mostly not so great. The Jagdpanzer 2 being the exceptions. Jagdtiger obviously is alright as well, but not really my cup of tea. And then we get to the Jagdpanzer. So here's the beast itself. As always, let's look into the armor before we do anything else. 150 lower plate, 200 upper plate. You can angle the tank quite generously because this thing still has the unnerfed E100 side armor. So you have 120 here plus 60 spaced, which gives you quite a lot of armor, I'd say. 260 flat side. Fucking hell, that's a lot of armor. Obviously you have weaker spots as well if you give somebody completely flat side. So expect to get penned if you give a flat side to somebody, but you can do some nice side scraping in these angles, as you can see. Maybe not so generous like this. It's not really gonna pen anything at these kind of angles. If you get somebody to actually be silly enough to shoot it. As the superstructure goes, you have 250 armor here and 300 around the gun. This can get penned by other TDs, and you will often see me aim at these spots to 250 armor zones when I shoot other Jagdpanzers with my tier 10 tank destroyers, just because you have plenty of pen and this you can't really angle 250 enough to bounce like 280 armor. I mean, 280, 290 pen. I mean, you can, but it's unlikely that anybody's gonna shoot you in those angles anyways. But yeah, that is a thing you can do, shoot other Jagdpanzers right in these 250 zones if you have enough penetration, or if you're spamming gold like a bitch. As goes for the gunman with extremely good armor values, don't even bother. You have this little button on the top. It can be annoying, but it's just a reminder to not let your enemies too close to you. You are still a big, slow, fat tank destroyer, so you don't really want to get rushed by medium. So you want to keep your enemies always at range, and this is a good reminder of that. You don't really want enemies to be close to you to be able to snipe this. You want them to be far enough to not be able to snipe this. Side of the superstructure, 150 armor as well. If you angle this, just nothing's really gonna pen it. I mean, just too much armor. That being said, let's look into the self-stats. So, as the aiming, we're comparing it to a T110 E3. I know it's not the greatest match, but it's kind of similar in a way it works. I mean, good armor, slow, and non-auto-loading, non-hex shooting gun, and no turret, of course. As goes for mobility, Jagdpanzer has better engine, but the worst horsepower per ton, obviously, because of the horrible weight of this thing. Worse traverse as well by quite a bit, and it is actually faster than the E4, E3, which is kind of weird to see that. Turn resistance also better by quite a margin, so the speed on this and the E3 is quite similar, and this downhill definitely goes faster. The gun stats are pretty much the same, though aiming time is not the greatest, but the substats, it doesn't really get fucked up, so that is nice to know. That being said, let's go into the replays. So, as always, let's start into looking the rest of the stats. So you have 2,200 hit points, which is extremely generous for a tier 10 tank destroyer. 30 kilometers forwards, 12 backwards, which is also reasonably good for a tier 10 tank destroyer. Obviously the speed is gonna be not that easy to reach with a big and slow tank like this, but you can do it definitely. Horsepower per ton 8.9, pretty damn bad. Traverse speed 20, probably the worst of all the tier 10 tank destroyers. And view range 390, which makes optics the preferred equipment piece over the binos. Traverse is 8 degrees in each direction, which makes it 16 in total, which is about the average of a TD with no turret. it's actually pretty damn decent, so that is something you can note. When it comes to the gun, 1050 average damage, 299 penetration, and yeah, you don't really want to mess with this gun. Rate of fire of 2.33 with the stock values, which makes the reload without any skills, consumables or anything like that 25 seconds, but obviously you can get it down to like 22, 23, something like that. Accuracy 0.35, aiming time 2.7, pretty shitty aiming time, but I guess that's the price you have to pay for having this huge ass gun. It still is alright because the Jagdpanzer is really slow, so the aiming the circle doesn't go nuts all that often. So far in this game we executed that poor little KV-4 and we penned the E100 stirred and E100 bounced off our tank with heat. So we're gonna go for that trade again. We don't really have as good shot as we did before, and I did hit the ground there. And the E100 has switched to HE. I mean, it is dangerous to be in long run, but as far as trading goes, I can shoot him. I need to shoot him once and he needs to shoot me back 5 times to make it worth his time, so if he keeps going like that, obviously probably slightly less. And yeah, just gonna shoot these medium tanks. Quite the lucky shot, but then again with this kind of penetration I just needed to hit him pretty much to pen him. Fire as well, very nice, and don't really know why he sat there in front of my gun though. So as you see, to have a pretty average game, you need to shoot this gun 3 times, which isn't really the toughest job ever to do, and in my opinion this is what makes this tank reasonably good. I mean, it's still competitive. You need to shoot 3 times and you're gonna be like average tier 10 tank destroyer damage pretty much, and if you shoot 4 times you're gonna be way above that. I mean, if you pen 4 times, I didn't pen one of my shots, so fair enough. And here's another penetration in the E100 third, and he shoots me for 400 damage this time with HE, which is quite a high roll for HE, you would think, and still, I mean, it was a good trade for me nonetheless. So equipment I would use on the Jagdpanzer is definitely rammer, definitely coated optics, and probably a ventilation or ground length drive. It just depends if you have a good enough crew and if you hit your shots often enough, or you just can't stand the aiming time. I mean, it is kind of personal preference. As it goes for the playstyle, I mean, this game I just went to the cap circle because that is going to be the place where I guaranteed will get enemies to shoot at, and yeah, pretty bad trade. The E100 hit me for not a lot of damage with HE, but the M103 got me in the side, and it's kind of annoying that my team isn't doing jack shit to deal with that M103. Now they started, but still, it is quite annoying to be me in this spot. And now the T-44, he kind of peeking here. I'm trying to lure him into showing his tank there again, but doesn't. No, he seems to be willing to do it. Again, didn't really aim it fully. Could have aimed that more because he still was trying forwards, but he got lucky anyways. And you can just see how this tank builds up damage. You don't really want to fuck with this at all. You definitely don't want to be that SU-101 sitting there like that and doing absolutely nothing. I don't know what is this glitch I have in the 9.6 replays where my one of the aiming points goes upwards for no fucking reason, because I didn't aim upwards like that, but I don't even know. It's kind of a weird glitch. I have no idea why it does that. But yeah, the playstyle of this tank is pretty much trade, and trade. 1 versus 1, just go in, shoot somebody in the face, pen him, do 1000 damage. At worst case, get shot back for like 400, and then repeat that in your 22 seconds, or whatever the fuck the reload is on this, I don't even know. It's pretty much as simple as that. You don't really... There's no super tactic about the Jagdpanzer. You just try to put it in positions where it can't be easily flanked, and you trade. As you can see, it works reasonably well. One thing it needs to be said, Jagdpanzer definitely gets countered by medium tanks. It just doesn't have the speed or the traverse to deal with those. And here's the next level kills securing. Block my own turret's shot and then kill the IS-4 like a boss. But yeah, medium tanks is something you don't want to fuck with ever in a Jagdpanzer. You're too slow, too big, and if you get flanked, you're pretty much dead. There's no real way to shake off things off your back unless you can have a solid wall or something behind you. So here's the end plate, 1675 experience, ace tanker, high caliber, 7317 damage done, and 243 assisted. Not the most complicated game by my positions. I mean, I just went to the cap circle because I knew I will meet enemies there, and I shot the living shit out of them, and that is what the Jagdpanzer is good at. You find the position where you're definitely gonna get shot after shot, and every time you reload you do 2000 damage, and you just dominate your enemies with the sheer power of the 170mm cannon. Is it 170? So here's the second game, Siegfried line, encounter once again, but before we get into too much action, let's talk about the skills you want to have on this crew, on the Jagdpanzer's crew. So, Sixth Sense, obviously. Repairs more than camo, snapshot smooth ride, always helps. Clutch braking, always nice in a TD with 20-degree traverse as well. And that's pretty much it from the important skills. I mean, smooth recon and situational awareness is always helpful, but yeah, just know that this is not really the scout tank you were hoping for. I mean, it's too slow for being that. One thing I forgot to mention is that the gun depression on the Jagdpanzer is 6 degrees, which is only worse than on the E3 from the tier 10 tank destroyers. The E4 gets 6 as well, so that is definitely a positive. The average one you pretty much get on every other TD is 5, or well, it's pretty much 5, and I think the Object 263 gets less than 5. So that is also one of the benefits of the Jagdpanzer. So tactic for this game pretty much is to trade again. I mean, the only thing that trades as good as I do is the other Jagdpanzer. They don't have any of the British TDs, and even if they did, they are only dangerous to me if they shoot AP. Well, they are dangerous if they shoot Hesh as well. It's just that they will not do as much damage as I will in a single shot. It doesn't mean that it's a good trade anyways, though. No RD in the game, which also helps, and would not have mattered in this game so much since the city map usually doesn't fuck you up that much anyways. So, side-scraping out of this corner, side-scraping can be quite awkward here, but I mean, I'm just gonna sit here and shoot the first unlucky fucker that will think of crossing this path. Not a super exciting way to start the game, but it's always nice to start it off with 1000 damage done. I mean, the E4 is quite optimistic in his hopes that I will not pen him, and the C3 kind of tried to block me like a douche, but it didn't get into my way in time, and I did manage to bounce the E4 shot with the track. So if the E3 wants to do that, I'm just gonna leave. There's no room for 2 TDs here, and it's not like this spot is so great that I want to really sit there till I die, and as you can see, our E4, E3 didn't get the better end of that trade. Gonna change my position slightly. It's always nice to do surprise attacks with Jagdpanzer as well. I mean, when you get to drop on somebody, you always will trade well. It doesn't matter what tank it is, as long as you're trading 1 versus 1. I mean, here I take 500 to do 900, so decent enough. I mean, it's still unfortunate to lose that 500 health, but that's how you do damage. And 2k damage done already, and the game is just beginning. You can see the tendency here. You don't really, in the Jagdpanzer, you don't sit somewhere and wait people to go into front of your gun. You're actually actively looking for your own shots, which is how you should be trying to play this thing. That's unfortunate. I probably would have penned him, but I mean, it's a narrow shot, so no real wonder that I missed it. But yeah, what I'm saying is that in none of these games you can see me sitting somewhere at the back and waiting for people to go into my gun. I'm actively searching for my enemies because I can trade well with pretty much anything, and I will trade well with pretty much anything, so I will try to find the shots as quickly as I can. Obviously, you want to maximize your DPM, since you have pretty much the shittiest DPM in the tier 10. You want to shoot every time you reload, so you have to actively look for your shots, and that's pretty much the best advice I can give to you. Don't be stupid, but don't sit at the back and camp as well. That's not gonna get you anywhere at all. And here, 1118 damage, pretty damn nice, but I will probably have to shoot a waffle anyway, so it's not gonna matter all that much. But yeah, actively looking for shots, side-scraping off things. I mean, obviously, if you spawn on an open map with 5 artillery, you can just go fuck yourself, but that's wall of tanks for you. On city maps, however, definitely look for shots every chance you have. And we are at 4k damage already, and damage builds up in this tank surprisingly quickly for something that has really bad DPM. I don't even know why I carry those heat runs in this thing. You don't really need them for anything. Like, I can't imagine what would you shoot with heat in this thing. If you have 300 pen and you can't pen something, you're doing it really wrong. 1078 on the Foch 155, and there's nothing he can do about it. He could shot me once, he probably would not have penned anyway, so there's not much he can do. There's a Waffle on my left. I don't really want to fuck with him. I would really love that Foch to die. He did bounce off me once, but I really need to kill that Waffle to my left. I can't really have that on my flank. And since the 155 is busy, this is as good a chance as any. Besides, the enemy Waffle is not even focusing me, so there you go. And pretty much the rest of them, apart from the 155, is on the field, so that's where I'm heading as well. Enemy Jagdpanzer E-100 complaining in the chat that his gun is damaged. I mean, it doesn't really change all that much. I would have still done this, but I mean, it's just nice to know that if he hits me, he's really, really, really lucky. He did hit that RU-251 though, for obvious reasons. And now, aiming where I said, 250 armor zone, and hit it as well. I did aim fully, and 0.35 accuracy isn't the worst. So you can expect to hit shots like that. Obviously, lucky on my part, but hey. I did the most I could there to maximize the chances of hitting and penning him to begin with. So now just baiting his shot. It doesn't really matter since his gun is damaged. He can still pen me because 300 penetration is nothing to laugh about. And now just aiming my shot again, and he's doing something really, really silly, and I don't really know why. But I'm not gonna say no to that. And another 1000 damage. We're at 8k. Damage builds up quickly in this thing, doesn't it? Trying to get a shot on this 1390, but I don't think my reload is gonna be fast enough, and it will not be fast enough because he's gone. And our Jagdpanzer is really, really mad for some reason, but really, to start drawing conclusions, I mean, for a while I was thinking that Jagdpanzer is only a novelty tank, and it's really good for being a Jagdpanzer, being a big, slow TD with nothing really going for it, but once I picked it up and started playing it more than I did before, this tank is actually half decent. It trades extremely well, and it's not that hard to do your average 3-4k damage game in this at all, and that's pretty much all you need, and games like this actually happen quite often. I mean, you do have those games where you spawn on a sand river with 4 artillery and then you literally can go fuck yourself, but that happens with all the big heavy tanks, and you just have to deal with it because World of Tanks just is a game like that. So, is the Jagdpanzer E-100 worth the grind? Well, fuck yeah, it is. I mean, the novelty factor, as I said, for me alone was enough, but the more I played this tank recently, I just came to realization it's a good tank. There's nothing really wrong with it. The fact that there's a Death Star in the game that can do 1750 damage per shot is a bit annoying for you, but 1000 damage is still a lot, and it builds the average damage in this tank up quite a lot as well. And here at 1390, not a very well aimed shot, and it obviously missed. Could have waited for a more reliable shot, but I felt greedy enough to take that one. And the grind is reasonably good as well. You have a really good tier 7, really good tier 8, a reasonably good tier 9 that isn't really my cup of tea, but if you like the slower kind of tanks, then you probably enjoy that way more than I did. There is some stinkers, obviously tier 6 is really bad, but still, I think the Jagdpanzer E100 is totally worth the grind, not only because of its novelty status, just because it is a good tank, and if you play it properly, it can do massive amounts of damage. And you gotta love that 170mm gun sound. That is not really a redeeming factor because most of the DDs have that gun sound, but still something else to add to the value of this thing for sure. So yeah, this is pretty much GG. I'm never gonna catch that batch yet, so I'm just gonna skip to the end plays because this video is way longer than it should be anyways. So here's the end plate, 3476 experience with the double and premium count, ace tanker, high caliber, 8240 damage done, only 9 penetrations this time with 3 kills and 1159 base experience, some decent profit as well for a tier 10 TD. Hope you guys enjoyed this review and get a Jagdpanzer. It is actually a surprising amount of fun. Who would have thought? I'll see you on the next one.